I am so done with retailer incentives unless they're on sale. Hey there, today I have an unboxing video, and in this video I'm going to open up an order I placed with G-Mart Comics during their Black Friday sale from last month, from November 2022. I was really shocked at just how deeply discounted these books were, and they had sent out kind of an announcement and gave those of us that were, past customers or had subscribed to their newsletter where we were getting a heads up that this was coming. And they did a little preview as well for some of the books that they were going to put on sale, but I just didn't know to what extent they would actually discount these books. And when I was kind of going through and making a list of the books that I wanted to target, I was assuming some sort of 50% off sale, and a lot of these books ended up being 70, 80% off. And when I say like discounted, it would be off the ratio price. So a 1 in 25 that they would normally sell for $25 was selling for much less than that. And in many cases, they were even less than the cover price. I am starting to move away from buying brand new incentives just because I feel like the comic book market or comic book industry in a way is not necessarily kind of respecting what's happening in the market. We're hearing things about layoffs and cost cutting and consolidation across organizations and businesses. And with comic books, it's just like we're ignoring it all, right? So we're seeing store exclusives coming out almost every day. It seems like there's a store pushing a new exclusive. Retailer incentives are still happening. We see 1 in 25s, 50s, hundreds, lots and lots of variant covers, as we are, I believe, in the variant era. And the recent news of Aftershock Comics filing for bankruptcy, it just got me thinking, like, why aren't companies that maybe we're thinking about potentially this happening to them? I know IDW is another company that has been scrutinized and is potentially up for also declaring bankruptcy, hopefully not. But I've often wondered, why don't publishers really go back and streamline and say, we'll do a cover A and a cover B and that's it, or maybe a cover A, cover B, and a 1 in 25 and that's it. Like, you don't have to necessarily completely roll back to just one cover. I understand that they're trying to tap into collectors, and if the more cover options you have, that will most likely feed into FOMO, where collectors feel like I have to have one of every cover. I totally understand that. But in a way, I feel like, wouldn't it be better off if you took all of your stories, all of your titles, and maybe cut 25% of them and removed maybe half of your variants or half of your store exclusives, and just kind of tone down the gluttony of comics that are out on the market? The new comic book market right now, brand new comics, it's such a hard sell out to the general public. I mean, I still buy new comics, but I've really scaled back. I'm not buying blindly, I would say, like I used to. And blindly, I mean kind of having a pull box where, the subscriptions are just being fulfilled every month and they're being sent to me, and I kind of don't know why I'm still subscribing. I'm not reading all of the titles. And it's not that I'm just not reading all the titles, I'm not collecting them really either. It doesn't even have any meaningful collectability. So essentially, with new comic books, I'm really cherry picking now what I buy from new comics. And although you want to think about like store exclusives and variants as like really you're just buying it for the appreciation of the variant cover, and they really can't be looked at as an investment, I'm really trying to do less and less of that when it comes to new comics. And what often happens, to kind of come back full circle to this order that I placed with G-Mart, is stores are left with stacks and stacks of books. And this is why mystery boxes exist, because they're trying to just offload inventory. I definitely feel this even as a collector. I'm not a publisher or a store or anything like that, but I've talked about in the past the cost of storage, and what these online stores have to deal with is the inventory. And at some point, stale inventory is costing these stores money. It's retail space, it's warehouse space. And in order to make room for better inventory, you have to offload the old stale inventory. At some point, it's better off taking a loss or taking less profit just to move the books out. I feel that way as a collector as well. I'm at the point where I am starting to run out of space, where I do not have the physical space to house my collection. So I have to figure out, and what am I going to do going forward? Am I going to take a percentage of my collection and get rid of it? Am I going to sell some of it off? Am I going to just scale back my collecting? Am I going to build another room onto my house for my comic book collection? I don't quite know yet what I'm going to do, but I'm starting to feel this. I'm starting to feel like a decision will have to be made sometime next year to figure out what am I going to do with this inventory that I have. And the first chunk of my collection that comes to mind are brand new books, new releases. And I think that what's interesting for me is that if I am buying a 1 in 25, let's say, and I end up pre-ordering it for $25 and I get it and it's not holding the value and it's not, maybe the cover art wasn't revealed at the time, and then when I get it, I'm like, it's not really something that I'm into. I start to feel negatively about that specific comic book. But then if I go and participate in a Black Friday sale like the one that G-Mart had, and I got that book for $4 instead of $25, all of a sudden I feel, oh, look at this book. Isn't this great? Isn't the art wonderful? It's funny how my feeling and my opinion changes depending on what I've paid for it. So let me get to the unboxing, and I want to show you all of these recently released brand new books that I've talked about me possibly moving on from. But these books, I'm excited because I got them at a very, very nice price. So if you stay to the end after the unboxing, I'll show you what I paid for these books, and I'll compare the price that I paid during the G-Mart Black Friday sale to fair market value, and I'll check to see if any of these books have value if they were professionally graded. So let's get to the unboxing. Okay, here is that order that I placed with G-Mart Comics. It did take a while to arrive. I think that they were just kind of flooded with orders, so it took a little bit longer than usual to receive the order, but it's here, so let's open it up. All right, they sent a couple of nice bookmarks. Thank you for ordering from G-Mart. Thank you, G-Mart, for sending me great comic books. Win-win for both of us here. And this is a very, very healthy stack of comic books. I believe it was around 26 books in total. What I do with G-Mart, what I like about it is you can specify which type of bag and board you want to get from G-Mart. So I always pay a little bit more for the Silver Age comic bag and board because that's what I use for my comics anyway. So it saves me the trouble of having to rebag and board all of these. These are basically the ones that I use, and it's the only place that I have found where I am not replacing the bag and board. Midtown is absolute garbage. Their bag and boards are ridiculously thin and terrible, and everyone else usually has to put a sticker or use a custom backing board or something, and I have to replace it all anyway. So I don't mind paying the extra money to get it, so I really, really like that service. So let's start taking a look at the comics. All right, so first up, we have X-Men. This is the Hellfire Gala. I think it's the Hellfire Gala 2022 series. This is the Art Adams variant. And I think most, if not all of these, are around the 1 in 25 incentive. There's some 1 in 10s in here. So I'll try and call out the ratio if it's not a 1 in 25. But all of these, I believe, are 1 in 25s or some sort of incentive. So this is a great Emma Frost Art Adams cover. Another great Art Adams book. This is X-Men Red #3. And I love this version of Storm where she's kind of an Asgardian. It was a X-Men annual that I believe was penciled by Adams and Simonson together, or Simonson inked Adams. I love that book, and anytime there's kind of a reference back to that version of Storm, I love picking that up. Then we've got X-Men #2. This is the Asrar 1 in 25. Got Jean Grey, Marvel Girl, right there in the center of the team. Strange #2 by Stephanie Hans. And this is a good example of what I ended up doing because there were so many books on the list. Like, how do you actually decide which books to get? What I ended up doing was, what was nice is they listed them all on a very, very long page. And I would literally open the page, Control F, and put in my search criteria. And I would most of the time search by artist, because they would list the title, the artist that did the cover, and then they kind of highlighted the ratio. So I would go onto that page and search for Hans, and then every hit of HANS on the variants, I would go through and decide, is this a book that I want to pick up? And I would check and make sure it's a 1 in 25 and it was a good price and so forth. So that's kind of how I navigated their sale, was really just searched by artists that I like and follow. So I searched by Adams, I searched by Esrar, I searched by Hans and some others. And then if there were any hits for books available, I added them to my cart. Here's Star Wars The Mandalorian #1. This is the David Aja version. I'm still looking for a 9.8 candidate of this one. I think I have 2 other copies and they're 9.4, 9.6, so hopefully that works out in a 9.8. Love that. That's I think that's my favorite Mandalorian cover, so I'd love to get that in a 9.8. This is Star Wars High Republic. This is Volume 2, #1. This is not an incentive. This is just cover A. I did grade my cover A's that I received from Dark Dominion Comics when I ordered brand new, and I think I only ordered a couple of copies of cover A, and neither of them were like specifically 9.8 candidates. It was like a borderline 9.6, 9.8. So I just figured G-Mart's been pretty good to me. Let me order one more copy of cover A. Here's Moon Knight #4. This is the Del Auto 1 in 25. Really love this cover, where it really feels three-dimensional. It's just a great action shot by Del Auto. And a lot of times his covers are really dark. So this was kind of cool. It was basically a black and white cover. Here's Iron Man 19. I love this David Nakayama 1 in 25. This is so cool. There are times where Nakayama's faces and his characters, they're borderline cartoony, but when you're drawing something like this with Iron Man, I think his art is just perfect for it, and really loved the dynamics on this cover with part of the background blurred and everything, and it really looks like Iron Man's coming at you. Great work in the foreground here, so love this one. And then here we've got Iron Man #2. This is the Scan 1 in 25. Leans a little bit Alex Ross, semi-computer generated, semi-painted, but just really like this one. You can actually see Tony Stark's eyes in there, which is really cool. I love this cover. Yet another Art Adams, Emma Frost variant. This is Immortal X-Men #5. And yeah, if it's like Adams, Emma Frost, or Adams, Rogue, I'm pretty much picking it up. Another artist I love to search for and collect, Alex Maleev, and this is his cover for Daredevil #3. This is the current run of Daredevil, and really liked sort of the letterboxing design on this cover and the fact that it's Maleev. I love his look, love his Elektra right there, and just always searching for great Alex Maleev covers. All right, a little bit of an older book, but not too much older. This is Avengers X-Men Axis #2, another Asrar cover variant. I really love this one of Scarlet Witch on the cover of Axis #2. This is Twig #1. I'm still buying Twig books. It's one of those I kind of can't help myself, or maybe I'm just thinking it just has to be some sort of animated property at some point. Great series by Scotty Young. This is the full art variant. I believe this is a 1 in 10. And then this is Noctera #7. I have purchased this book in the past, and I just keep falling in love with this Jason Fabok cover. There's a full color, a black and white trade, and then a full art black and white. And anytime I see this at a really good price, I pick it up. This is Noctera #6. This is the Andolfo 1 in 25 for Noctera #6. I've also picked this one up in the past. I am a sucker for covers where the character is stuck in a monster's mouth like this, so I always love grabbing these. And then this is Noctera #3, and this is the Tony Daniel black and white full art. And Daniel is the primary artist on Noctera. So very cool to have this line art inked version by Daniel. And then this is the same book, but with the trade. So this is Noctera #3. So I believe that the full art black and white was a 1 in 25, and I think this is a 1 in 10. Geiger #1. This is the 4th print. So I paid much less than cover price for this, but this is not an incentive. When I placed this order with G-Mart, it was right around the time where we had gotten the news that Geiger was going to be optioned into some live action, who knows, over the next few years what it'll end up being. And I remember reading the news and going on to the G-Mart sale, searching for Geiger, and there was a hit on the fourth print. They had it in stock, and it was on sale for Black Friday, so I picked that one up. Another book I I have a lot of, and I keep buying. It's Department of Truth #1. This is the 6th print, so this is not an incentive, but got this for much, much less than cover. I love that cover for Department of Truth. Vampirella Strikes, not a regular buyer or collector of Vampirella, but John Royal is somebody that I have gotten into recently, where his art pretty much is stylized like J. Scott Campbell. And why some of these artists aren't in the mainstream Marvel and DC, I don't understand. Like if you added Royal to Amazing Spider-Man, like cover Bs right now, I'd be buying multiple copies of each one. But this is a homage to the Wolverine cover where he's in Madripoor. And Jim Lee did that cover, and you can see it's homaged after Jim Lee right there. So it was another one of those artists where I searched for Royal and saw which books were a match and picked those up. Here's another Vampirella Strikes. This is what Dynamite called the modern icon version by Michael Turner for Vampirella Strikes #1. A reprinted or redone version of Turner's original #1. Next one is the Sandman Special Edition. It features an excerpt from the first chapter of the Sandman Book 1. I've really, really been enjoying this series on Netflix and wanted to grab this and got this at a great price from G-Mart. Catwoman 47, this is the 1 in 25 by Tula Lotay, another artist I searched for. She is now on the Catwoman incentives, taking over for Souza Micah. So I grabbed Catwoman 47 and Catwoman 46, also done by Lotay. And here is Batman 125. Again, kind of going back and retroactively getting on board with the Chip Zdarsky, Jorge Jimenez run. It's the first appearance of Failsafe, and this is the black and white wraparound incentive variant. And the last book is cover B for Briar #1. So also not an incentive, but what was happening is the books that were not incentives were so deeply discounted. It was just a percentage off, and then some of these that I recognized that were just regular cover A's or cover B's ended up being, a dollar here, a dollar there. So I was happy to have an opportunity to pick up extra copies of those. So speaking of prices, let's take a look at this order, and I'll show you what I paid for the books. I'll show you the kind of discount that I got from G-Mart, and then compare the discounted price against fair market value. And then we could talk about kind of the perspective on some of these books when you're able to get them at such a deep discount. All right, here is that order that I placed with G-Mart Comics on November 24th, 2022. I spent $92.24 to have these 26 books shipped to me. And there were no tax, no shipping, so no additional fees other than the bag and board service, which I will gladly pay for to not only make sure the books arrive safely, but I don't have to replace those bags and boards because they're specifically the ones that I use. So it saves me the hassle of rebagging and reboarding all of these comics. So I don't mind paying for that, $9.10 to get the bags and boards for all of these books. And then what I end up doing is distributing the $9.10 across all 26 books. So it adds a few extra pennies to each one in terms of my total cost. So what I've done here is I've recalculated the total cost and summed this across the 26 books. And if the $92.24 matches this $92.24 on my invoice, then my math is correct. And now I know exactly what it cost me to acquire these books. So now if you're cheating and you're looking at the total cost, you'll see that the numbers are all like single digits. We're talking about $3, $4, $5, $6. And if you're comparing column Z to column U for the cover price fair market value, where I run that comparison here in column AA, every single one of these books, which is awesome, are positive. This was close. Vampirella Strikes. It's a $2 book, and I paid $1.94, so that was close. But all significantly more valuable raw than what I paid. So that makes me feel really, really good. My intent here, again, is not to take all of these books and say, hey, I got them on sale, and let me then turn and flip them and make some sort of profit. It's really, for me, always adding value to your collection, yes, but there's an opportunity here to figure out if any of these incentives carry additional value if they're graded beyond just the fair market value. And I did go back and check G-Mart, and because I was wondering, is this really like a Black Friday only sale? Do these discounts reoccur or they sustain through the holidays, and they're not. So this was a one-time thing. So it's making me think forward to 2023, like, again, just another reason to avoid buying them brand new. And as I was saying before, if we are going to see publishers start to kind of scale back a little bit, or are they going to continue to flood the market with these incentives? And what's my approach going to be? Or am I just going to ignore them altogether? But when I see these numbers, of course, I'm appreciating these comics just that little bit more. And I wanted to point out just a few examples here. So like the Noctera #6, the Andolfo 1 in 25 has, according to cover price, a fair market value of $25. So it's holding at ratio, and it only cost me $4.34. So it's one of those examples of a deep discount on these incentives where they were selling at or below standard cover A cover price. So several of these were in double digits. Batman 125 over $17 of value added. Catwoman 46 almost $17. Noctera 3, the Tony Daniel variant at $15. I spent $2.34. I mean, these are just great prices that, I may not see again unless they do run a special sale between now and next November. But I would rather hold out until November and just do this again every year with G-Mart, because just there are so many great books and great covers by artists that I love, and be able to acquire them at these prices, to me, just seemed like a great opportunity. The David Aja variant, Mandalorian, again, heavily produced, only $12 for that 1 in 25. I spent $5.34 to get that. I spent way more on that book when I pre-ordered it. The Del Auto Moon Knight, fantastic dynamic cover there, almost 3D, $23 fair market value. I paid $5.34. So I could just keep going through them, but let's look at the total and skip ahead. $246.76 of value just from the raw value. And most of these books were recently released books. I think the Avengers X-Men Axis book was, I think, the oldest one that I picked up. You can see here from the year, everything's 2020 to 2022, except for the Axis #2 published in 2014. So I want to load this up with some grades. Now let's just pretend that G-Mart sent me all of these books at a discount because they're 9.4s. I'm curious to see if any of them have a value in a CGC 9.4. And it looks like some of them do, and this is, I think, typical of books released in the last few years. Again, my running theory that the days of slabbing every new release book that looks to be 9.8 are over, just because if they don't hit a 9.8, it's not that you have a 9.4 slab that's not worth anything, but kind of. I mean, you see a lot of zeros here in the CGC value column. Looks like the most valuable here is that Catwoman 46, the Lotte 1 in 25 and a 9.4 has a $50 value. And Mandalorian #1, the Asia variant, $42. But, if I were to send all of these in and they had some sort of damage to them for any reason whatsoever, Batman 125, $40, it would have been a loss, right? So the goal here would be to hit 9.8s on these new books. And with G-Mart, I think the average grade of books that I pick up from G-Mart, it's very, very high, in the 9.6 range. So it's not out of the question that many of these would be a 9.8. So if I were to flip all of these to 9.8, let's take a look now and see which of these 9.8s have value. And more populate, but not all of them. Not all of them have value from the sources that I use. And what's interesting, none of them are over $100. So that's where you're thinking, oh, I want to pre-order a retailer incentive and I'm going to get it for 25 and it's going to be worth 100 if I get it in a 9.8. It's not necessarily the case. The 2 Catwoman 1 in 25 variants by Lotte, I think those are desirable books, collectible books, $78 for 46 and $81 for 47 in a 9.8. Batman 125 at $60. Here we see Twig #1, the full art is $65. The Geiger 4th print, $51.50. The Mandalorian, again, you're getting Star Wars collectors, Mandalorian fans, and so forth. That one is the most valuable here at $85. But even some of the Esrar and Adams variant covers that I love don't have value in a 9.8. Even the Avengers X-Men Axis, that great Scarlet Witch cover by Esrar, $39 for that one in a 9.8. So all in all, if we look at the CGC value, if I were to send all of these books in for grading and they all hit 9.8, for 26 books, only $225. I say only just because you would think across all of these books that there would be more significant value. And right next to it is the raw value. So you'd be better served just keeping all of these books raw, which that sort of feeds my working theory, which is not to send brand new books in for grading if you are looking at it as an investment. If you are truly looking at these books and looking at the hobby as a business for you or something where you want to make money off of these, I believe that at least for now, that window has closed. That's not to say that I'm not going to send any of these books in. It's not to say that I would advise against it in general. Everyone is going to collect the way they're going to collect. And honestly, if I go through here and I find 9/8, I'm probably going to look at them and look at some of the great covers that I picked out and send them in anyway, because that's what I like to do. I like to collect. If that Mandalorian Asia book is a great example where it is a good combination of a collectible, valuable book in a 9.8 that as a collector and as a fan of Star Wars and The Mandalorian, I would love to have that book in a 9.8 and display it. But there are other examples in here of books that I love. The Fabok Noctera covers I absolutely love. I'd love to get those in a 9.8. And across all of my sources, it has no value. There's no reported sale of a book like that. So they're either not being submitted for grading or they are and someone's trying to sell it and they can't. But I'll end up not caring because there's some sort of attachment that I have to the book. But I'm thinking about like ways where you're justifying it, right? It's not like it used to be, which was it was almost automatic, where you'd get a stack of new books, you'd grade them yourself and say, okay, here are my 9/8 candidates. Maybe these go in with a modern pre-screen. These books need a press, or maybe they're 9.4, 9.6, and I just keep them raw. And the decision-making process was way easier even a year ago, certainly a couple of years ago. Now you have to really kind of cherry pick out the 9.8s and then make another selection out of those if you're strictly only looking at which comics are valuable. And out of these 26 books, you can imagine I may only be left with 2 or 3 where it makes financial sense to send them in. The collector side in me is going to want to send in almost all of them that are 9.8s because that's what I'm about and it's how I collect. But I'm super, super happy with an order like this. I love finding deals wherever I can. And I really felt like when it came to the Black Friday deal, they were doing like a buy 3, get 3 free store exclusives. And even that was tempting. And I know I had some books in various carts across the internet, but I ended up canceling all of that and really kind of executed this order with G-Mart as my primary Black Friday pickup. So let me know in the comments, how do you think I did? Are these books a little bit more appealing because now you've seen what I paid for them? Or do they still have a stigma attached to them because they're retailer incentives? I'd love to get your feedback or comments about what you thought with regards to this order. Thanks for watching, happy collecting, and see you next time.